How's that?
Great. The lighting's kind of weird. Can I turn this on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's better, I guess.
We live, y'all. I'm just we're working out some framing stuff here. So if you're with us now, we got another 3 minutes. You could hop over to Charlene and Sean over in they're on IG, and Charlene's in Wyoming talking to cows, and Sean just jumped into a pool. So if you missed that, it's pretty nuts.
Hi there.
Paige Payne, y'all.
Just me over here, hosting now by myself. You guys want to see the bump?
Wait, not yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't show it to you yet.
Not yet.
If you want to see it, just go to Instagram. Follow me at Paige Fink.
Yeah, why is it Paige Fink?
Well, because do you guys know how many Paige Paynes are around the world? I hopped in on this Instagram game about.
Were you late to the Instagram game?
I got one like 13 years ago or something like that. So Paige Fink would be a pretty popular name. I just can't give it up. But if you go to my page, my name on that is Paige Payne. So
where's Bandit?
Bandit is in the bathroom because I am being a human chew toy. I seriously think that he sees like steaks or something when my hands move around because
this is just the pre-show, y'all. There's
torn up.
There's 2 minutes left before we start the actual show, but
oh, thank you for that glowing comment.
Who said
Caitlin? Caitlin, of course.
Oh,
you guys.
Paige,
here's a little
glowing. I'm your biggest fan.
Here's a little pregnancy situation that happened. Am I cool? Are we just live for fun right now?
Yeah, this is just.
So I went
pre-show.
to the beloved coffee house, RIP, when we used to be able to go there. And the gal behind the counter, Kyla, I love her. She goes, "Wow, Paige, you're glowing." And I knew I was pregnant. She goes, "Not the pregnancy glow, but you're glowing." Because at that point, nobody knew I was pregnant. But she could sense it.
She could sense
it. She could sense it. It's been crazy. There's been a lot of women who could just sense it.
Weird.
I know.
Weird.
I know. Word.
Still pre-show. 1 more minute of pre-show.
I'm so nervous.
How now, brown cow?
Oh my gosh.
Unique New York. Should I wear my hat like this or like this?
Wait, do you know who the I'm so nervous reminds you? Does it remind you of anyone in particular?
The last time we were live, I wore my hat backwards, and you farted.
Stop! That was the most embarrassing night of my life. I literally couldn't sleep because I had so many stupid things that night.
Oh man.
I'm so sorry. Sometimes I forget that when we're just talking to a camera in our living room, that there's people there's like 61 of you that are listening to us right now, and we're just
talking to each other though.
Oh gosh.
We're just talking to each other.
And then I humiliate myself because you guys don't have the grace for me that
I'm sorry, Savannah. I'm sorry, but
what?
We're on that level. She said call her out like that, Austin. Like we're comfortable enough.
Yeah, but me and whoever Mark Brown is not comfortable.
Whoever Mark Brown is a legend. And
I'm Mark Brown. Are you a freshman or a sophomore?
Sophomore. Gave his life to Jesus at Sahale.
Soon to be an 11-12er.
That's my dude.
I mean, you know.
I have a soft spot for Mark Brown.
Hi, Mark Brown. Are we on yet?
Yeah, it's 7:01.
Bienvenidos.
Hi, people. Hi, party people.
Into our home.
Welcome to 910 Fireside Chats live edition with your girl Paige Payne.
With your backup's backup.
Backup's backup. Wait, who did? I don't get it.
Like I'm the backup's backup.
Oh yeah.
You know.
But you're like the best backup of all time. That's actually the like front runner.
Wow.
Whatever the opposite of a backup.
This is like what happened to me when I was in first grade and they told me I'd make an awesome person in left field, but no first graders hit it to left field. You know what I'm saying?
I think it was right field probably.
I don't know which one it was. I was just too busy picking flowers, making crowns.
Making flower crowns. Okay. Well, tonight, for the next 20 minutes or so, maybe a little longer, we'll see if we go into OT, we're going to talk about the difference between upward spiraling and downward spiraling. And so this last weekend, if you were with us on the Zoom call, or if you got to watch the weekend sermon, we talked about the end of Philippians chapter 3 and the beginning of Philippians chapter 4, where Paul really talks about how do we avoid anxiety, how do we live a life of peace, how do we focus in on things that are noble and true and right, and etc. in that list. And it's really the difference between mentally upward spiraling or downward spiraling, and how do we get ourselves into those situations. But before we do that, I figured we'd tell you a little bit of a...
Wait.
Oh, yeah. Before we get to that, sorry, my lovely wife and I, most of you know this already, but we're pregnant. And Paige,
We're having a baby!
Show them our baby girl.
If I must.
The baby bump. There it is, y'all.
Never have I ever had people so interested
the baby bump
in what's going on.
Right there in its flesh. But do you want to show off some of your fashion show?
Just for you, mostly, I mean, we can do some like gender neutral options, but ladies, this is mostly for you because I've been obsessed. Once we found out we were having a little girl, melt me. So here's a little sneak peek at what we got going.
Out of breath.
You guys, look at this. I know, little gingham. It's so cute.
What'd you call it? A gingham?
Gingham is the pattern.
Oh.
Okay, you guys, this is her coming home outfit, which is actually a really big deal. And oh no, not that. And nobody else is going to see this except for you guys until we post it on Instagram or we show you our baby ourselves. But look at this. Her little name is Piper Ann. Those are little moons, and it's mustard. And it has a headband. And then, okay, these are the last two things because the shoes are just precious. You might have seen these.
This is for the gentleman. Check out these kicks.
Ladies, we like these things too.
Check out these kicks. Look,
right?
match it with Papa.
We like these
Mama.
things too. And
these out though.
They're so cute.
How fresh are these boat shoes though?
Oh, thank you, everybody.
These
I know.
are fresh.
I know. We're obsessed. Also, my mom is like the most extra ever, and
she's great though.
She like in the best way. I love my
in the
mom
best
for that.
possible way.
And she's like, I have to send her little Vans because Austin's gonna like them. So thanks, Mom.
True.
Mom, if you're watching, thank you.
Love you, Mama Bear. Oh man, we're all melting, Janai. Don't worry, we're all melting. This chat is just blowing up over here. You really know how to get the people going, guys. We're at 99 people. We're one person away from 100. 21 likes. We're 7 minutes in. I don't know. We make out on camera.
Ew. Sorry.
Ew. She says 102. Just kidding.
I'm embarrassed.
Okay, so speaking of downward spiraling and upward spiraling, we figured we'd tell you some horror stories, kind of.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's not a horror story, but it's kind of an upward, downward spiral story when it comes to dating.
Oh my gosh. We were just retelling the story to think about like, oh, what are we going to talk about? And I actually brought up.
We kind of thought
about it again.
About our fight.
You know those moments?
So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sometimes when you recap a fight, you end up fighting about the fight. So here it goes. I had planned.
This is his perspective.
I had planned probably the most epic date I could possibly think of for Christmas, and this was it was Christmas Eve, right? No,
it was a couple weeks before Christmas.
A couple days.
Okay.
I think it was a couple days before Christmas.
Okay.
And I had planned this like big surprise date for Paige as her Christmas present. And so we were down in La Jolla, staying at some of my like best friend's house. We were down there hanging out, and Paige was going to come down and spend the night in a guest bedroom in the house. This is like one of my family friends' house. And so I'm staying with my buddies on the floor. Paige is staying in the guest room. And the very next morning, we had to leave at like 6 a.m. and for this date. And so, sorry, I was just reading that comment about arguing. And so we were going to leave at 6 a.m. the next day, and Paige forgot her overnight bag.
Which, I had very intentionally packed to have a really awesome day and a really awesome date, but I had just left it on like the floor by my door of my apartment on my way out.
Which at the time, like, wasn't the end of the world. It was like kind of a bummer.
It caused someone to downward spiral.
That wasn't the end. It was actually the first step of the downward spiral of like, because I was bummed that I had planned this big date and I had my expectations set really high. And my expectation for that day is that it was going to go really well. And not bringing your overnight bag, Paige, sometimes you have a tendency to maybe like be forgetful about like details, some things like that, which again, not the end of the world, but it was just kind of a bummer for me of going like, dang, I had planned this really important date and you forgot like the clothes that you're going to wear tomorrow and like little things.
I
like,
had to rewear my outfit. I didn't have deodorant.
No deodorant, no, like we got you a
It's
toothbrush and
devastating.
toothpaste, but then you couldn't do your makeup and you wanted to do your makeup because you wanted to look cute the next day.
All the things.
All the things.
I sound so shallow. Ladies, care about other things than that, please. Please.
Anyways, so we the next morning wake up at 6 a.m. and we drive up to Carlsbad. And
hold on, I
you
could
didn't
not
sleep.
sleep the entire night because I was so sure that we were gonna have the most magical day the next day, and I was like, Austin's gonna tell me he loves me. Like I can see it in his face. So I seriously
we
didn't
hadn't
sleep
at this
a
point.
week.
At this point, we had not said "I love you" to each other. So it was we were like 4 months into our relationship.
I was like so hard eyes melty and just so excited that I literally didn't sleep a second.
So now, ladies, she's wearing her same outfit. You didn't wash your face, and so you felt kind of like, right?
Yeah. Okay, move on. Let's go.
Okay, and then now she's tired, like dead tired. So we show up. My plan for the day was I had gotten a buddy of mine who has an airplane, to like small 5-person airplane to fly us to Catalina for the day. And so we show up at the Carlsbad airport on Carlsbad, whatever airport, Palomar Airport Road, whatever, that tiny airport. And I like roll back this gate and we drive up to like a private plane. And I'm like, at this point, stoked to kind of reveal my secret to Paige and go, boom, we're going on this plane. We're going to Catalina. Like, I'm stoked.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on The Bachelor. This is amazing.
And so we fly. Yes, this is the same day I met Shia LaBeouf, Michelle Hargrove.
OMG, yes.
But that was probably the worst part of my day, to be honest.
Really? That was the worst part?
Shia refused to give me a picture with it.
Oh my gosh.
But so
that was the best part of my day.
We take off. We fly over to Catalina. We do like a full lap around Catalina. I get to fly the plane. She gets to fly the plane. Like we're having a great time, but me and her aren't really vibing. Like we're not really talking. And then
but we're both being really chatty with the pilot who's flying us, but
right.
we won't talk to each other.
Right. Like you ever been in a fight with your mom or your dad or your sibling or something, and then a third person enters into the picture and it's like, oh, you just kind of talk to the other person and like ignore each other. Yeah, that's what was going on. So we land at this epic airport. We take the trolley van, whatever, all the way down into the city there out at Catalina. And at this point, I'm like bummed that she's super tired. I'm bummed that she doesn't feel great. And like me and her aren't off to a great start. And so I kind of, in my downward spiral, start like withdrawing, which is kind of a tendency for me to go, if I'm bummed, that's something I've had to work on a ton of. If I'm upset or if I'm disappointed, I need to withdraw and just go like I'm going to take my ball and go home type of thing. Like you ever get in a fight with athletes out there, like you get in a fight on a basketball court, on a soccer field, and whoever's ball it is, they're just like, okay, fine, done. And they like grab their ball and just leave. And you're like, well, that sucks. That was stupid. In my immaturity, there are times where I tend to withdraw and go like, cool, like I'll just be done. I'm just going to be over here. And so that was kind of how I was acting at this point, of like a little bit immature for sure, and going, I'm just going to withdraw from the situation because I'm disappointed.
Here's this day where I'm expecting to be like magical moments, and he's all being like cold, which for me is the worst impression you could ever make. And I'm like bidding to like be silly or have fun or make a connection, and he's just not responding. And I do that a couple times, and then I kind of hit a limit in my head and was like, he's the worst. I can't believe I'm with a man, wasting my time on someone who's just treating me like I'm not worthy of paying attention to, and this is the worst day ever. And then I build that up that that's who he is. He builds it up that I didn't take this date seriously, and we have like the worst day ever.
So we both downward spiraled like quite a bit until we were sitting on that big grass lawn. I think it took us until that moment.
That's when it got worse. Oh my gosh. We went and sat on a lawn and talked, and I gave Austin this letter that was like the most kind letter, and he made fun of it. He made fun of my love letter. Yes, I remember in that moment thinking like, I'm never going to be vulnerable with this man again.
Oh man.
That's when it got worse. See, here we go.
I didn't remember that part. I feel like I didn't really make fun of it. I think I just commented about one section.
You commented about it and then you laughed about it. That's teasing.
At that point, to be fair, we had both probably downward spiraled so much that anything I said, whether it was like teasing or not, was received poorly, right?
Yeah, it was said poorly too. Okay, so then
it was bad. It was really bad.
We almost broke up, and then we got engaged. It's great.
We did almost break up that day, but Paige and I, on 2 separate occasions, we almost broke up. And then both of those situations, we actually got to talk through and kind of be honest in the moments. And I think a lot of the times what keeps you and I from like meeting each other or being on each other's team is pride, and of me going like, I'm too proud to step up and actually like own my faults and own my part of it. And there might be some pride on your end of going like, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to be my own person. And I think 10 times out of 10, if I just listen to the actual story of it inside my head of like, stop being proud, humble yourself, own your junk, meet her where she's at. She's for you. Like, Paige is amazing. And I stopped the process of the downward spiral. And I think a lot of us kind of have this internal battle, and it's characterized a lot of times like in movies by like the demon and the angel going like, do what you want. And the angel going like, no, cry out to your higher self. But I think like we all kind of feel that inside of us when there's the pride going like, no, keep being angry, keep downward spiraling, focus on yourself, do what you want to do. And then the humility going like, you're being dumb. Like, stop making this about yourself, and meet, in this circumstance, Paige where she's at, or meet your friend where they're at, or meet your life group where they're at, or whatever it may be. And I think pride is often the killer of stopping the downward spiral. If the downward spiral is a fire, pride is like the gasoline on that fire to just accelerate the downward spiral.
For sure. And I feel like even like in the pride piece of, we can walk from a situation and have like, wow, that thing that person said just totally set me off, or the way that conversation was handled, or who took control there and the tone that they said it in and all this kind of stuff. And we take it and we put it in our heads and we walk away from other people and we start building up this whole story around what happened. And for me, this is like so true, either when I'm driving or when I'm in the shower, I'll like start talking out loud to myself about how I was so wronged, or like I go into that downward spiral piece of like that, building up this story around how it was like so awful. And then I think like even today we kind of had a situation where like heated or whatever in the moment, and then you kind of ask yourself like, wait, what am I actually mad about?
Yeah. Like
that one phrase, like what? I can't believe that person or that tone or that situation had so much power over me to cause me to get to a place of such anger. But it's that process of being alone and like being so entitled to like allow myself go into that downward spiral that I'm like, what?
Right. Which is probably
why am I so mad about that?
It's so huge in this season, right? With like siblings, with parents, like at home so much. I guarantee there have been days where you just have downward spiraled. And then even the smallest thing, like your sibling doing something that's kind of annoying, or your parents asking you to do something that they don't normally ask you to do, or something along those lines just sets you off. And for the rest of the day, you're just spiraling. And then maybe at the end of the day, when it's just you and your head hits the pillow, and you're like, whoa, like, how did I get so off? How did I go so far down that rabbit hole? And yeah, it's how do we stop that downward spiral? I think we have to remove ourselves from the situation almost and go, okay, what's actually important here? What's actually true? Which is, I think, why Philippians 4 says it so well. Like whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's trustworthy. Like it lists off this long list of attributes of God, really, and says, think about such things. Because if we don't, we tend to downward spiral into selfishness and pride and just being mean. And for sure, I can be a jerk in those moments of downward spiraling, but that's not who I want to be. That's not the marriage we want to have.
Right.
That's not how we want to argue. And a lot of the times it takes pressing the pause button and remembering who you are and what's really important to get there.
Right. Like, what do we believe either about ourselves or about other people or about God that has led us to a point where we're so convinced that everyone is against us? It's kind of sad. Yeah, I think too, like with the remembering and dwelling on what is good, what is noble, what is just, all those things. I think who we surround ourselves with is going to be a huge piece to whether we upward spiral or downward spiral. And I know I have in the past had friends where something could like kind of make me frustrated, and then we start to feed off on one another about why that was like the worst thing ever. And we're convinced by the end of our conversation that we're like so right. As opposed to having someone in your life who's kind of more sober-minded and can kind of point out, is that specifically what's making you so frustrated about this situation? And almost kindly and gently and with empathy and all that kind of stuff, being able to point out that it might not be worth, like, I feel like Austin does that for me a ton of like, it's not even in your control. Like, why are you getting so hyped on that?
Right. And that's so important. Like, having people around you that love you enough to tell you the hard truth is huge, right? And that's mentorship. That's good friends. Like if your immediate group of friends are just people that just rah, 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 always tell you that you're right and are like, oh no, you're the best. And you're always like, you need new friends. And that is just, man, that is such a crucial part of life, of surrounding yourself with people that will tell you the hard truth. Like Paige had mentioned kind of a little bit of a situation that we had today. Like there was moments where Paige reassured me and told me, I'm on your team, I'm for you, I'm with you, like I'm in your corner. And that's huge language for me. Of if you think about like a boxing ring, of like you're in the fight of life and then you have like your people that are in your corner. I know that no matter what happens, Paige is in my corner. She's on my team, that we're never going against each other. And we might fight and we might, butt heads, but I know she's always on my team and in my corner. And yeah, criticism can be hard to hear, but if you know somebody's for you and on your team, you have to have people in your life that love you enough to criticize you. And it's not coming from a place of like tearing you down or for the sake of criticism, but it's to build you up and to make you better. If Paige only ever told me that I was amazing and that everything I did was right, every decision I did was right, and I was always, the best, like I would be missing out on opportunities to grow as a person. And so I love that reassurance of, hey, we're on the same team. I'm for you. I don't benefit from tearing you down at all. And when we're together, I'm also going to tell you some hard things to hear. And sometimes I'm going to have to tell you that you're being dumb or that you're being prideful. And sometimes another person can be the thing that stops your downward spiral, to go, you're spiraling. Here's how you need to stop. And that can be hard to hear, but we need to have the humility to go, okay, you're right, I'm spiraling, and how do I stop? You mentioned this briefly about this will be kind of the last thing we touch on, but focusing a lot on something that's out of your control. I think we've talked about accelerators of the spiraling process, and sometimes we focus out of our control, and that can be gasoline on the fire as well. Talk to me about that. What are scenarios where that might happen, and how do you stop it?
Yeah, I feel like this happens all the time at like North Coast church in general. I love our church. I trust our leadership. And yet there's certain things like, oh, I wish that decoration looked different, or I wish that I would have known what was going on that conversation, or
like a decision's made over your head that affects you that you're like, whoa, wish I would have known that, or I don't like that.
For sure. And I tend to so often like look at things that are totally outside of my purview and choose to like fixate on them and get mad about them and think about all the things that I would do to them. Meanwhile, I'm spending all my time and energy focusing on something that I have absolutely no power, no control, and God has not asked me to steward those things at all. He has not gifted me those things to steward.
That's good.
And yet he's given me all of these different areas. He's given me women's ministry in 11-12 and the Jordan and life groups and all this different kind of stuff that I could be spending his time and his effort and his energy focused on. And yet I'm so concerned with the things that are not mine to steward yet. And that's been something that I have not nailed by any means,
right.
But I'm literally watching the process of the Lord refining me of just take your hands off of the things that you can't control and instead put those energies and efforts towards the things that I've actually invited you into. So
yeah, I think I learned that lesson the hard way, to be honest. I was a junior high pastor right out of college. This is about, 6 years ago now. That's crazy to think, but I was a junior high pastor, and I worked with a high school pastor at that church that him and I at the time, we just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of ministry philosophy things. And he became my boss due to some unfortunate circumstances at the church. Our boss had to step down for personal reasons. And overnight, this relationship that was a bit tough for me at the time became like a boss employee situation. And for about a year at that job, there were so many things like Paige was talking about that were really frustrating for me, and things that were coming down the pipeline. And but I'll never forget, as I was leaving that church, I ended up stepping out of that situation for a handful of other reasons as well. It wasn't just that, but as I left, one of the senior pastors of the church sat me down and he just went dude, I totally understand why you're leaving, and I actually think it's best for you, and I think it's best for the church. I think this is a good decision overall. But it's the thing that bums me out is I felt like you had the junior high ministry to focus on. That was yours. You could do whatever you want with it. You had all this freedom. And then there was that was probably 85% of your job. And then there was this 15% of your job that was out of your control. You didn't have, and sure, it might've sucked. It might've been bad. Even if all of those things were true and it was justifiable, you spent 85% of your time focused on the 15% that you couldn't control. And it ended up just causing me to downward spiral. And I think so much of life is like that, where there are maybe 10%, 15%. And maybe for some of us, there's more unfortunate circumstances like that, like stuff at home, the types of parents you have, school stuff, freaking COVID-19, a pandemic. But whatever that percentage is of things that are out of your control, how much time do we spend dwelling on the things that I don't make decisions on and that are out of my control? And I'm not, right? I'm not in government, and I don't run the school boards of North County, San Diego, and I'm not my mom and I'm not my dad, but I can control me, and I can control the way that I react to things. And I think sometimes we really downward spiral if we focus on what we can't control.
For sure. I feel like in school I did that all the time with teachers, and would just complain and gossip with other people about how that teacher made such stupid decisions of how their classroom should be run and all the assignments and stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And just, I think there's so much freedom in going not in my control. And I'm not talking about sticking your head in a hole and just going blah, 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 pandemic, not in my control. I'm not talking about being ignorant, but I am talking about, what do we dwell on? What do we meditate on? What do we focus on? Do we spend our time, energy, effort, right? Do we spend our time focused on things that are out of our control? Because sometimes that's, one, exhausting, and two, it can accelerate the downward spiral.
Could I maybe bring up the last verse of the section you guys talked about
Absolutely.
this week? Okay, you guys, that verse that God will grant us the peace beyond all understanding is something that I just wanted to touch on real quick. And I pray that that's something that each person that's watching this right now, all 139 of you, get to experience at one point. Of, we can look at the world through the view of, how is this affecting me, and what am I in control over, and what am I not in control over? And we can let our mind either spiral up to get to experience that peace, or downward spiral to kind of dig us down into that pride. But really, that whole part of getting to meditate on the goodness of who God is and have this trust that God is in control. God is all powerful, and he's for us as his people. I think that when we simply just like grasp onto that very simple good truth, we really do get to experience a peace beyond all understanding. And it's just really interesting because for us to get so worked up to become mad or whatever, we have to go into all these intricacies and all these details and all of this like explaining of why we're so mad. And yet there can be such a very simple truth that God is powerful, God is in control, and that he's for us. And that just that simplicity can ultimately and immediately bring a peace beyond all understanding. And it really is. It's a supernatural peace.
Totally.
So.
And sometimes, like personally, I feel like if I don't voice my frustration with this, or if I don't focus on the things that bother me, then like what's going to happen? Or, and I want to take control of the situation. And it doesn't make sense that if I just focus on upward spiraling my thoughts, my relationship with God, my time in the word, my time in prayer, like if I do that, then there will be peace. And I go, that doesn't make sense. And the Bible goes, I know. That's why I said a peace that goes beyond all understanding. Like the Bible clearly says on a megaphone, this isn't going to make sense to you. It goes beyond your understanding, but that peace will guard our hearts. It'll guard our minds. It'll guard our thoughts as we choose, right? And it is that active choice to upward spiral and focus on, man, the Lord is near. That's what Philippians chapter 4 says in the beginning. Dwell on God's nearness. Then anxiety can fade away. Then peace will be offered to us as we up on the nearness of who God is. But stoked for you guys to dive into life groups tonight. Thank you to my lovely wife, Paige Payne, and Piper Payne. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Right.
Baby girl. Appreciate
Right.
you. We love you guys a lot. So stoked for life groups tonight. This is the second to last Fireside Chats. We got 3 life groups left before we dive into our summer programs. Head on over to your life groups. We love you guys. Yeah. Love you.